Hi there, thank you for joining me today on Diagonal Move. My name's Neil and I'm going to be playing through a game called Reconquista. It's a solitaire specific game all about the reconquest of Spain and Portugal by the various Christian kingdoms of the 9th to 15th, 16th centuries. So hundreds of years encapsulated in one game. That will take me anywhere between 5 minutes if I do terrible or 2 hours if I do a little bit better to play. Video may be quite short or it may be quite long and we ended up with the edited highlights. We shall see how it goes. So Reconquista is a kind of an area control type game with an element of random dice thrown in as well. And really what we're going to be doing is at the start of the game we have a few Christian rebels who have risen up, shall we say, against the Islamic forces that controlled the region at the start of the period of history we're looking at. And we will be controlling those Christian rebels, and over 20 turns, each turn of which represents several decades of real time, we will be trying to quash any rebellions that we come across. We will be taking over and converting various cities that are Islamic held at the beginning of the game into Christian cities, scoring points for Christian cities at the end of the game, and generally just trying to wrest control for the Spanish and Portugal countries from the Islamic world. Of course, the Muslim forces are not going to take this lightly, and they will be having a turn of their own in which they will raise armies, place garrisons, build forts, and send in reinforcements from the North African coast. There are a few different units in the game, and they broadly do very similar things. This is not a particularly complex game in terms of the units, but basically you have either garrisons, which are these units with a G, who control areas and don't really move out of those areas. There are armies who have an A on them, and they will be the forces who move from one region to another, conquering and taking part in sieges and so on. And on the Christian side, we have the military orders, who are the Knights Templar type military orders of the day. On the Christian side, specialist units, if you like. We have, just off screen, we do also have some neutral armies who will be representing everything from the Crusaders to mercenary forces to various other things, and some rebels who will be springing up from time to time and taking control of our cities and generally being a bit of a pain. I have just realised I haven't placed everything onto the board that I should have done, so let's just finish the setup now. So how does the turn work? Well, we'll roll some dice and we will decide based on the die roll where certain random events happen, certain rebellions happen. We'll then gain income using the same track as the turn track, and then we will spend that income, move around the map, fight some battles. The Muslim forces will take their turn, we will resolve any sieges, and then we will do some cleanup at the end of each turn. So the first thing to do is probably point out the various regions on the map, and so we have 5 regions, which are these sort of solid coloured areas, so the yellows and the pinks and the greens and the blues, and then we have areas within those regions. So for example, Tarragona, Barcelona here, Valencia, these sort of green rectangles are the areas. They represent countryside if they're green. If they are brown, they represent mountains. There's one or two different rules for mountains, but we'll get to that when the time comes. We have roads linking some of these areas together, which is important for movement. And then each of these areas has a number, and in fact the example Castilla there has a number 3 next to it, and that's relevant to the die rolls. It helps us to determine where things are going to happen, what rebellions are going to happen, determine any random results, and so on. So with that being said, let's just get started and go from there. So the first thing we'll do is the rebellion phase. where we roll for a rebellion. And the first thing we'll do is we'll roll one die for the region. So we've rolled 2, which are just out of shot there underneath that stack of units. The region we're going to have is going to be affected is Aragon. And then we'll roll again for the rebellion result, which is again a 2. And on a 2 we have Outlaws. Now the Outlaws are going to be placed in an area with no garrison, if possible, or army or military order, or we're going to place them randomly and eliminate a unit. So let's have a look then. So we're rolling for 2 and we'll roll again. We've rolled a 3, which means we cannot place a unit, or because we have no rebel area free of units, so we remove one from there instead. So we've removed a Muslim garrison from the city of Barcelona. Next thing we do is we roll 2 dice, and this time it is a random event. In this case we've rolled 6, and the random events we have are raiders. And so what that means is we roll some more dice, decide where the raiders are going to turn up, and then they will move and do some damage. So let's roll for the number of raiders first. We rolled 2, and then we'll roll 2 dice to work out where those raiders go. So on a first dice roll we've rolled a 6, and then our second dice roll is also a 6. So cross-referencing the raiders table, 2 of the rebels, or 2 of the raiders appear in Seville, the 6 and 6. And then they'll do their turn and cause some problems. Raiders and many other forces represented by the neutral counters move in just the same way as the Muslim forces. So what will happen is they will move between areas based on the numbering on the areas. They may or may not drop forces off, but whenever they can, they will battle forces that are not friendly to themselves. And in the case of these raiders, everybody is an enemy. So the first thing we'll do is do a battle. Combat is very simple in how it's resolved. However, there are some nuances in when it takes place. In this circumstance, though, where there's no city or fort, so the battle will take place. If we were in a city or a fort, you'd need a minimum of 2 units in the city or fort, of which at least 1 would have to be an army. And if there's not 2 units in a city or fort, or one of them is not an army, then the battle would be avoided and it would move into a siege. Let's cross that bridge when we get to it. So the first thing we do then, if we roll for the neutral units, we've rolled a 6 and a 1. Now the different units hit on different numbers, so the armies will hit on a 4, 5 or 6. These count as armies, meaning that the 6 has removed that unit. But because we're in a green area or a countryside area, the garrison gets to fight back, and we've rolled a 1. Garrisons only do damage on a 5 or a 6. So the outcome of that is that the garrison is removed. And then this group of soldiers here will now move to the next highest region, which is number 6. We've come across some enemies again, and there's only one garrison, so we don't. There's no battle here. We jump straight to the siege phase, and the raiders will leave the minimum number required to lay the siege, which is the same number as the number of forces in the fort or the city. And then the other unit will move on until it meets another enemy force, where it will have another battle, because we have a garrison with no city or fort there. But this time the battle is in the mountains, which is that kind of grey-brown colour rectangle that Porto's in, and that means the defending force fights first. So roll for the garrison, the Muslim garrison. Roll a 3, no damage. The army roll is roll for the army now, which is the raiders. They roll a 3, so there's no damage. Depending on what happens in a situation like this, how many hits each side have rolled, depends on who retreats and so on. In a circumstance where we've done the same number of hits, in this case none, we will simply roll again. But this time the mountain benefit has not happened, and so I'll roll 2 dice at the same time, with the white one being the raiders, green one being the Islamic forces. And this time we've rolled a 4 and a 2. That 4 is enough to remove the garrison. The raiders will carry on, and they will go within the area to the next highest, and they will just circle round the numbers. So if they reach a 6, they'll move to a 1, and they'll circle round until there are no more enemies left, and then they'll start moving into new regions. But there's still an enemy here at the city of Lisbon. We cannot cause a battle because the city only has the garrison in it, and so we'll stop there, and we'll see those again in the siege phase a little bit later. Which means it's now our turn, and as the Christian forces, that is, and we will need to generate income as our first step. And we get 2 income as standard. We then also get income if we have control of Santiago, and for every region in which we control the most cities. Now that does not have to be the region where are the most Christian cities, just the region where we control the most. So control's a slightly funny thing in this game when it comes to how you control them. So for example, we are in Oviedo, and we control a Christian city because we want it. This Christian city, though, is controlled by the Muslim garrison. Even though it's Christian, it still counts as a Muslim-controlled city, and they can recruit and what have you from that city as though it was their own Muslim city. And you'll see that throughout the game, the cities will swing from one faith to another, and the control will move from one side to the other. They'll maybe even become rebels, but so long as we have control, or as players, they are our cities. The only time Christian, specifically cities, are important really are when we score, and then we have to have Christian cities that we control for the scoring. I hope that makes sense, but we've got our 2 income as standard. We don't have control of Santiago, so we don't have any income for Santiago, and there is nowhere on the board where we control the most cities, because we have 2 cities in Asturias there, and we only control one of them. So we get no extra income, just the 2. Now we can do various things with our money. We have to spend it, of course, or some of it if we don't want to spend all of it. We can build a city, but that costs 3 money, which we can't do. We can recruit, which will cost us a varying amount depending on the units we choose to build. Generally speaking, they cost 1 or 2. We can convert a city from Christian to Muslim, build forts and so on, various things that we'll see throughout the game. But the thing we'll do at the moment is we will buy 2 garrisons for 1 coin each. And I'll place them here and here. Then we have to move, or we can opt to move. Now, this is a fragile part of the game for our side, because we really don't have very many forces on the board, and there is the potential for the Muslim forces to get quite a large army and steamroll their way through and destroy our fairly small force, which is how in the past I've lost the game very quickly within really just a single turn on my worst performance. So But let's have a think for a moment, because realistically we don't really want to try and take that city. There's a risk that we would do more harm than good by trying to take that city at this point. This garrison here, we could send a garrison to the city here. Garrisons can stay within a region, but they cannot go outside a region. We could come and get Barcelona, which could be useful. And then the other thing we can do, of course, which would be quite useful, is to take Santiago. So let's move. We can move as many forces as we want. Let's move over and claim Barcelona. With our other forces, I think it would be quite helpful to send one of our armies, or our sole army at the moment, off to Santiago to do a battle in the mountains. Now, that's a little bit risky because the garrison will fight first, and they hit on a 5 or a 6, so we'll see how it goes. But let's roll for that Muslim garrison, and they've rolled a 6. That's unfortunate. So we've lost our army. That was a very quick battle. So movement's done, battle's done. Move on to now the Muslim phase, and we roll some dice, and depending on the region we roll and how many cities the Muslims control in that region, depends on what they do. It's controlled by really a table here. So let's roll firstly for the region, and we've rolled a 2, which is Aragon here, and the second roll will be a 5. Now they control just the one city, and on a 5 they build an army. Generally speaking, the army will be built where there is an area free of units, as in enemy units, if they can, and if they can't, there is no effect. But let's roll to see which area we build in. It's a 4, so we get an army in Tarragona there. And then the Muslim army will move. And they need to leave a unit behind or an army behind. And sometimes you have a stack of 5 or 6 of these units. But the first thing we'll do is we'll move to the next highest numbered area. So in this case, it's Zaragoza, and so the army will move here. There's no enemies there. We're not there. There's no rebels. So then they will pick up the army that's there, leaving behind a garrison, and then we'll move to the next highest number, but we're on 5/6, so we cycle back round to 1 because there is an enemy in the region, and they move here and start to threaten our garrison in the Pamplona mountains. There will be a battle because there's no city or fort, and we will roll a 5. That's pretty good. We kill an army on 5. But they strike back. They rolled a 3. They don't do anything on a 3, so now they have to retreat. And they retreat the way they came. And then they move to the next highest number with an enemy force on, which will be over here. And we'll start the process again with the garrison at Barcelona. But there's no army, there's only 1 unit, therefore the battle does not take place, and instead there's a siege. The siege phase is, again, it's some dice roll, but this time you add on various modifiers depending what's in the area being sieged. So, for example, if we were to do a battle here, you would both roll a die, and then you'd add on modifiers for the units and the city and so on. But there is a specific order in which the sieges are resolved, starting with the lowest numbered area in the lowest numbered region, so we would do any sieges in Asturias first, but there isn't any, so we'll move to Aragon, and it will be this one first. And for this siege we will be rolling 2 dice. The green one will be the Muslims and the white die will be the Christians, and we've rolled 2 6s. Now what happens here is the army will add 2 to that die roll modifier, meaning the Islamic forces have an 8 in total. The garrison will add 1 to the Christian die roll, and the city will add another 1, meaning we have a draw, we both have 8, and we both lose a unit. Now, if there were units remaining, the siege would continue, but in this case there are no units remaining, so the siege doesn't continue. And we move to the next siege, which is going to be here in Lisbon. It's the lowest numbered area under siege at the moment, and this time we will do the same thing, except the white will be the neutral army, or the raiders as they are in this particular turn. And we've rolled a 6 and a 5. There will be an additional 2 to the 5 for the raiders because they're an army, meaning they have 7. We'll have 1 for the garrison plus 1 for the city, meaning 8. So you have 8 versus 7, and the raiding army are defeated. Same thing here. In the Badajoz, we roll 2 die. The white being the raiders, green being the Muslim defenders, and we add 2 to the army that's attacking, which is a 3, and the garrison here will be 3 plus 1 for the garrison, with that modifier doubled because of the fort, so we'll end up with a 5 for the defenders, removing that unit. And that's the siege phase done. Had there been any remaining neutral units, they would be removed from the map at the end of the turn as part of the cleanup, but we don't really need to do much cleanup at the moment, so all we simply need to do is move the turn track along 1 and move to the new turn, and we begin again. I'll go through a little bit quicker this time, so hopefully you've seen a good sense of how the turn's structured, and I'll move a little bit quicker from now on. So first thing to do is roll for the rebellion. The Asturias will have some problems this turn, and those problems will occur in Gallica. Apologies. The problem that will occur will be the regional revolt, meaning that the entire region is excluded from the game in this turn. No income, no movement, nothing. So that's going to be a very quick turn because we can only do anything with this single unit here. So before we do anything now, we do need to roll for the event, and that's a 4, which is Mercenaries, and there are D6 Mercenaries available, which is basically the similar principle to the Raiders, and we rolled 2, so we get 2 Raiders. Now these are not going to go onto the map straight away. They're going to wait here, and we will have the opportunity to buy them. If we don't buy them, we will unfortunately find them fighting us as part of the Muslim forces during the Muslims' activation or reaction phase. But we do get 2 income. They do cost, that's a good question, how much do they cost? The mercenaries cost 1 income each. Fortunately, we can buy them to resolve any problems that we may face, and we have 2 mercenaries on our side, which is probably about as good as we could hope for, really, given our power base here in the mountains is excluded from the game due to problems with rebellion. Now, it doesn't seem to be very sensible to try and take Barcelona because our garrison is relatively weak and our neutral armies will disappear at the end of the turn. So we could take away some of these forces, or try to take away some of those forces, throw our mercenaries at them. Or we could maybe send the mercenaries. No, really, that's all we can do is either come here or start fighting. It seems sensible to try and start fighting. So let's do that. Let's send our 2 mercenary army into Zaragoza and hopefully take that during the siege phase, which will be happening shortly. But before we come into the siege phase, we do need to roll for the Muslim reaction to our activities. We've rolled a 6. Now a 6 means that we do not place directly onto the map. We instead roll for reinforcements coming from North Africa, which are these numbered ports here with that sort of anchor symbol. So we've rolled a 6 to show that there's some North African forces. Roll again, which is a 5, and on a 5 for North Africa we have 5 Muslim armies, which is going to be a problem. And then we roll to see which of these anchors they arrive at, and wouldn't you believe they arrive here in Tarragona, which means they will almost certainly cause us some problems when we get to the end of this particular activation. But first they're going to move. They will move to Zaragoza first, because there is a that's the higher numbered region, and these armies here will join forces with the garrison, and they will fight these 2 armies there. Because there are 2 counters, their armies, we can have a battle. So this really is going to be 5 dice against 2. They do roll at the same time, sorry, 6 dice against 2 because of the garrison. Everybody rolls at the same time because we're not in the mountains, but for the purposes of this I will roll for the mercenaries first, and I've rolled a 2 and a 6. Now that means the mercenaries have scored 1 hit, and in a situation like this where there's different army, different types of unit, there's garrisons and armies, the garrisons would be removed first, but they will get a chance to hit back, so I won't take them off the board just yet. So we'll roll the five dice that I have, and we've done 2 hits with the armies. We'll roll for that garrison, which is another 5, so 3 hits in total. Both those mercenary forces are removed, the garrison is removed, and the raiding continues, or the Muslim reaction continues. We do leave behind enough forces to look after the city and the fort that we're leaving behind. Then we move on to the forces in Pamplona, which means we now have a battle. The garrison will get to fight first. Because we're in the open, that's why we have the battle. On a 4 we've missed, so we now have, I think it's 4 dice against that garrison. And we've rolled a 6, so that garrison is defeated. We still have a Christian city, so we will roll back round to the city. If there's one part of this game that is slightly confusing, it's how the battles work and the different controls work when it comes to moving the Muslim army around the cities and so on. But my understanding of it is, and please correct me if someone knows better, is that we will leave behind a force because we need to leave behind the minimum to lay siege to it, and then they will continue to the next highest number. Now there's no more uncontested areas that are Christian. There's no Christian forces, so we will move to the next highest area with an enemy force, which would be Christian or rebel. They are only in Oviedo, and that region, the entire region, is excluded. So I believe we will actually stop, and I think we may actually should have stopped here, I think. But that's not 100% sure, but that's what we'll do. We'll stop there. Moving into the cleanup phase now. Well, it would be the siege phase first, but there's no sieges. Moving to cleanup, and then on to turn 3, where I can only hope things will improve for my increasingly beleaguered Christian forces. Okay. Roll for a rebellion. It's going to be a rebellion in Portugal. It's going to be a proselytizing problem, which means we changed the religion of a city to a new religion. Normally we do it at random, but there's only one city. So the city of Lisbon will change from Muslim to Christian. However, the control will still be the Muslim side. A random event now. We've rolled an 8. And El Cid. This guy is like a general. He's obviously represented as El Cid, the historical figure, but in the game he is a general that could fight for either side, just representing improved leadership and so on. Which side he joins will depend upon a dice roll. And on a roll of a 3, he is a Christian, which is quite helpful because that will give us a +2 to our siege strength and allow us to roll first in battle when the time comes. Income, just the 2. We still don't control Santiago. We don't control the majority of cities anywhere, so just the 2 forces. 2 income even, which we now spend, and we could buy a fort for 1, which may make sense. Let's buy a fort. Place a fort wherever we have units, and then I think I will buy another garrison, because if nothing else, they soak up damage from the battles and sieges. They tend to get taken off the map first, meaning we have no more income left, and we need to now move. I kind of want to get that income up. I don't know which is the easier target. Let's go for this one. We'll come down here with 2 garrisons and El Cid, and we will lay siege to the town of Leon. No battles, so we move into the Muslim force reaction phase 4, and we roll that die again, which gives us region 5, which is down here in Al-Andalus, and the Muslim player controls 3 cities in Algeciras, Cordoba and Granada, and on a roll of a 3 with 3 cities, they build an army. And the army will be raised in Algeciras. Now, we need to begin to move, and we'll move in the direction quickest to where there are enemies, so Christians or rebels. So in this case, we'll move here. We will join forces with the armies that are there, and then because there's no more forces, we'll move into the next region as directly as possible, which is along this road here. Only armies, and in the case of the Christian forces, military orders can move along roads to new regions. Garrisons can't do that. We will also acquire a new army, and then we will keep moving in the direction of our forces, and we've finally arrived outside the city of Lyon to support our garrison. So that's going to be a total of 4 armies plus the garrison fighting a battle outside Lyon, led by El Cid. And the fact that we have El Cid there means that we can fight first. And El Cid, if I just double check exactly what he does, we allow us to roll first, and some help in sieges, isn't it? So we will roll first, so we don't actually roll a die for him in battle, although we would have a benefit in sieges, would be more so. So we just roll the 2 die for the garrison, a 5 and a 1, so the 5 will remove the garrison when the time comes, but first we need to roll for the armies and then that garrison, so armies first. And wow, we've 6, 4, 5 and 4, that means our forces are defeated. Then of course the garrison comes off, and our Islamic army leaves a force behind to keep control of Lyon, and then moves into the mountains to have some fun, shall we say, with the garrison at Oviedo. No battle this time, straight into the siege phase, because there's nothing else I think they can do. They're not going to go anywhere else at the moment, because there's no other enemy forces around, or enemy to them anyway. Meaning we will roll a die for each side, white being the Christian, and the Islamic forces have rolled a 6, Christian forces have rolled a 2, so we have a 6 plus a 6, for 2 for each of those Islamic armies, so we have a 12 versus a 2 plus 1 for the garrison, plus 1 for the city, doubling that benefit due to the fort that's under there somewhere, meaning we have 2 plus 4 in total, 6. So 12 against 6, our garrison is defeated. Our fort comes off, and then on a roll of a die we decide whether or not that city is being removed. It's an even number. Oviedo has been razed to the ground, and I think it's fair to say that we didn't do very well in this particular game. Wow, that was pretty brutal. Pretty brutal. Anywho, I hope that has given you a sense of how Reconquista plays. Please don't take it as a strategy guide, because it would only leave you disappointed, I'm sure, if you did. However, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's been a useful look at a game which is quite nice. It's quite fun to play. It has that element of luck that you need to try and mitigate. You never feel on top of anything in this game, and the game can go horribly wrong when you least expect it, or indeed as maybe you did expect it when you saw how I was performing here in this game today. Nevertheless, I would like to thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time.